I'm Leonora Valvo. I'm CEO of eTouches, which is an event management software platform. And I guess I'm here to tell you a little bit about our evolution as a company, although we're still evolving. And I was amused by Peter saying marketing basics, because in my current world, I don't think there's anything basic about marketing anymore. It's a phenomenal, really amazing field, and one of our biggest challenges, really, as a company. So, eTouches, we're a software developed from our event services business. So I'm sort of a multi-layer entrepreneur. I've just evolved my businesses over time based on market needs, based on probably a little bit of my own ADD, based on phases of my life and, what would accommodate it. So I started out early on at KLM Airlines, and then I started a consulting practice. Nobody had ever heard of travel management consulting. It was just sort of about 10 years post-deregulation. And, I kind of looked at the industry and said, well, there are all these people over here who don't have any idea what travel management really is, and all these people over here who try to sell them stuff, and there's a real misconnect. So I started a consulting practice, and I worked with, Cadbury, Schweppes, US Shoe, Oracle Corporation, major companies around the world, and helped them figure out how to buy travel. So it was long before there were travel managers, people, it was interesting that, it fell in the legal department, the HR department, the facilities department. Even finding customers was really interesting because it was very hard to figure out who in any particular company had responsibility for the function. And I did that for about 10 years and got a little bit tired of the idea of having my body have to be somewhere in order to make money. So I went to local travel management companies, travel agencies, leisure travel agencies in my town, which was then Armonk, New York, and I pitched to them that I would take their leisure agency into a much larger corporate agency. I knew nothing about that. I'd never run a retail agency, and I hated the retail side of travel. So it seemed like a really good idea for me to go there, and I talked to all of the agencies in town and found one that said, yeah, okay, we'd like to turn our $500,000 leisure agency into something else. So I did that. I worked for them and with them. I was a partner, developed a pretty large corporate travel agency with a very, very small conference division, and the same size leisure division going along. And in 1998, I sold that. And I sold it for cash, which was pretty unusual in the travel business. Normally, it was sort of an earn out. And grew it to about a $5 million business in, probably 5 years, 6 years. And when I left that business, I found the transactional nature of travel really difficult. I really hated the fact that there was no strategic conversation. It was really just about lowest price, and companies moved on, and you could have a great relationship and have done everything for the client, and then, the wrong guy, probably generally the superstar sales guy, was in the wrong seat on the plane, and the travel agency lost the business. And it just seemed way too difficult to manage. Plus, I could also see that the whole industry was about to change. This was before the commissions all went away, and it just seemed pretty obvious that business was going to change. And we were already fighting in our industry for a very small share of wallet in the overall cost. So left that, sold the corporate and leisure agencies, and retained the very small conference business, which was really logistics still. It was mostly housing management and the air for meetings and conferences, mostly related to the corporate clients. And we did that really successfully and very profitably until 9/11. And I had a commission-based business in 9/11 where we were ramped up and doing all the business for a pretty large group of customers. And it roughly runs about 3 months before an event that you're really ramping the business. And then every event got canceled downstream. So we had no income from any of the events. So it was about 6 months of just no income. And so we took some SBA loans, and I downsized, moved to Connecticut, and said, never again am I going to be a commission-based business. I re-engineered it to a fees-for-services outsource event management company. We did everything: sales, sponsorship, marketing, collateral, program development, everything to do with the life cycle of putting on an event or meeting for any kind of organization. We stayed really agnostic. A lot of companies in our space then still get pretty focused. They become pharma meeting planners, or they're, commercial event kind of decorators, or, they're very involved in small aspects of the business. And I said, we don't really want to do that. We want to specialize in all of the things across the event life cycle. And we don't care why the customer is putting an event on, because an event is an event is an event, for the most part. It's like everything in life, it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of what you do for an event is the same. It doesn't matter whether it's an internal corporate event, whether it's an exhibition, or whether it's a training or conference. They're all the same. So we did that really successfully. We were 55th fastest growing business services company on the Inc. list in 2007. And had global customers, multinational customers, corporate customers, association customers, very different kinds of customers. And through that experience, it became really obvious to me that if we didn't figure out a way to not only develop really efficient software, but to create a way for our teams to work virtually and not drop a thing. In the events business, there are, I think, 9 million details in every event that you put on. And in larger events, the stakes are pretty high financially. If you miss deadlines, if you forget to drop rooms, all of the things you can do that can completely destroy your client's P&L, they're really scary. And when you're balancing many, many events across, a pretty big number of people, staff who are managing them. We were also an outsource, plug-and-play kind of resource. So in some cases, we were handling the entire event. In some ways, that was the easiest scenario. But in most cases, we were one of several vendors that were brought together to manage the event for the client or the portfolio of events. So a lot of scary stuff. I spent a lot of time listening to people, yelling, who's in the spreadsheet for such and such, or hearing somebody scream because somebody accidentally wiped a spreadsheet out. And that just was like, there's no way we can do business that way. So I happened to be very lucky to have a personal relationship with a very young man who's brilliant. And I said, we need to do this stuff on the web. So I'd never heard the term SaaS software. This was probably in maybe about 2005 or 6 that we started developing the software. Nobody in my industry had ever heard the term SaaS software. And I didn't call it that. I just said, whenever we go anywhere, we need to be able to get to this information. Like, we can't have people, having to remember all the details of what they need. And so he started developing the software for me. And we developed it module by module. Today it's about 13 modules, maybe 14 now. I don't know, it keeps sort of growing. And we only used it for our customers for many years. Several years. It was just something we used for our customers. And really tried to address a number of things, not only the internal part of managing those events and meetings, but also the experiential part for our customers' customers. So, we're a solution. We have a lot of crazy customers, and they have a lot of crazy customers. And it's a really interesting problem to solve, because the events industry is a really interesting industry. It is very hard to get people to turn up for events. It's a real big challenge. And actually today, it's even harder, because there's so many events out there. There's so many places people can go. And the marketing piece has really changed that world. Used to be that, a lot of the bigger companies, they had the keys to the kingdom because they could afford big marketing lists, they would buy the database, they would send out direct mail, they could afford big glossy brochures, and everybody else was really struggling to get people to events. Well, of course, with the change in social media and the web, it's much easier for everyone to get to everyone. The problem with everyone getting to everyone is that you have to stand out somehow. So we were looking at ways to help our clients stand out, make sure that the process was really good and crisp and clean for their customers. And about third quarter, fourth quarter of 2007, I was sort of getting feedback from customers saying, and about that software, like, do you guys sell it? Like, does it have a name? What are you doing with it? And actually, Volkswagen Audi Group was one of the customers that really pushed us and said, you have the best software in the market. Do you guys know that? Like, want to tell anybody about it? And in early 2008, I made the decision to get out of the event management business. We had about a $3 million EBITDA book of business. I made some good decisions and some not so good decisions. So I decided we need to get out of that business and really just sell software. We pushed the brand out. It did have a name, but we'd never really told anybody. So we pushed the brand out, and I went on the road for funding. Shortly thereafter, or around within that time frame, we had a CFO who came to me and he said, the event services business doesn't make any money. We need to get out of it now. And I said, well, that's odd, because I've been in that business for like the past 10 years, and I've been making really good money. So like, show me like how it's not making money. And he, got all his spreadsheets together, and he said, nope, absolutely, we have to get out of it. We won't get funding if you stay in the business. It's very, it's murky. People don't understand that we're software, not services. You have to get out now. We have to get out of the events business. So we overnight let go of about $2.5 million of event revenue. And then it was 2008. And we went for funding, and 18 months later, we got funding. So we got funding in June of 2010. It was painful. It was scary. I always tell people I was probably around, 30 days from losing my business. We were really, really close to not making it. It was just complete perseverance. I was just determined. I knew that the product was good. I knew that what we were doing was somewhat unique within our space. And I just kept pitching until finally we got our first term sheet, which was conditional from Connecticut Innovation. And it was based on my being able to raise another $500,000. So I went out and shopped the term sheet, and Graycroft Partners decided to come in as the lead, Alan Patrikoff. One of the best things that ever happened in my life. Scary as hell. The dude is unfiltered. He's scary. He's tough. He's really, really smart, and he really forced us to put in place the things we needed to put in place to make sure that we survived, and he was really good. CI, Graycroft, and Kava were our initial Series A round investors in 2010. We took Series B this August at a substantial increase in valuation, so we did really, really well. And tell you a little bit about where the company sits now. We had about a 78% growth between 2011 and 2012 in terms of revenues. In SaaS world, that's pretty significant. I think our comp, the company comp for us is about 32%. So standard for companies in our size and range is about 32%. So we had phenomenal growth. We doubled our MRR. MRR was like something I'd never heard of. Monthly recurring revenue, who knew? We doubled that from 2011 to 2012. And we have a phenomenal team of people. We hired 13 people in Q4. We were 24 or 25 at the end of 2011. We're 70 people today. So we've had a pretty amazing year. We have a lot more to do. This is all sort of the interesting part for me. Moving from a services business, the way I think about the services business is no one's ever going to innovate ahead of you. Like, you get up every morning and you provide the service, and as long as you keep your values in line and work hard and talk to enough people, you'll have customers, you'll service those customers, and you'll do the job, and it doesn't really change that much. And I could never have anticipated the speed at which things change every day in my company today. So it's been a huge transition. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to be a software company. It's a very different world. Everybody talks about scale. Scale is hard. It's really hard. Finding the people, that's one piece of it. Getting all of the formulas right, making sure that the marketing is really generating the leads that you really need in order to get to that level of growth is really hard. We made it. We did really well in 2012. We've got another little leg in the hockey stick to get through in 2013. I expect we'll get there. We've got really smart people involved. And in addition to our own brand, we recently acquired, I'm sure most of you have heard of Eventbrite. We didn't acquire Eventbrite. They've got a lot of money. We acquired a company called Woovite, another local company, similar type product to Eventbrite, which we'll be launching soon as Pinky. So we're launching mobile. We've really pushed out our mobile applications. We're creating some new modules, although that isn't really our key strategy for 2013. 2013, we're looking at, measuring everything. You kind of grow and grow and grow, and everybody's running, and then you stop and you go, we don't really know that much about what's worked and what hasn't worked, and why we got to where we got to. So now it's time to kind of step back and figure out what we're doing. So a lot of measurement in 2013, a lot of UI enhancement, UX enhancement on our system, and a lot more sales. That's what we're doing. Oh, I was going to just show you. Actually, one of the things that's really interesting, I think, is people often ask how we managed. We did a few things. We did a few things right. There are a few pretty big players in our space. Most of you probably heard of Cvent. They're like the big player in the event management space. And one of the things we did differently, because we have such a heritage in the events business, is we recognize that our buyers are not technology people. People who buy our software are not technology people, for the most part. We are starting to see some pretty large, complex corporate deals now, but for the most part, they're event people. They're event managers, meeting planners, marketing people. They're really not technology people. So we kind of took the risk this past year of kind of being really bold about our brand and not being afraid to be, we say, pink. Actually, when we have new developer types come to our company, we always talk about that they have to get pinked. And really getting pinked means understanding that technology is great, but it's only great if it's useful to the people who need to use it and they can understand why it makes their life better. And we're very much still a services culture. We don't think about ourselves as a technology company. We think of ourselves as an event software company, which is really there to serve our customer. And interestingly enough, one of the things we did also really well is we managed to repurpose most of the people who worked for us into different jobs as software people, which was hard. We had meeting planners, we had salespeople, we had marketing people. Those people are now in support, they're in sales, they're in marketing, they're in jobs selling software that make us really unique because they really understand the buyer. They really understand the user. They don't just understand how to use the technology. They understand how to apply the technology to the lives of the people that we're selling to. So this was our website. This is our website right now. I think if you go there now, you still see that. But, this is part of where we're going. And as of next week, this will be our website. So I'm showing you this because, I really think, from my point of view, everything is really staged in evolution. For us, the Love Your Software theme, we weren't afraid to say, it's okay to have software that you actually like with a software company that you actually like. We're not all about being corporate and blue and, talk tech speak. Sorry, Nish. But really, we want people to feel like we're approachable and friendly, and when they select us, we're not going to just move on and sell to the next person. We really are going to get their world. And so you have to kind of take your business evolution in the stages where it makes sense. Over 2012, a slightly more garish, really standout kind of brand and message was really useful to us. It really got our brand on the map. We really came from nowhere. The couple of companies that really had a name in our space have been around for 10 years longer than we were, have phenomenal amounts of money. Cvent took $136 million in 2012. They were one of the biggest software raises in the year, full stop, not just our niche little events world. That's actually had a really good impact on us in terms of I think potential exit and the venture environment, because it's put our space, really front and center in terms of a space to invest in. When I started looking for funding, nobody had any clue what I was talking about. Like, they didn't understand what event management software was. They didn't understand what kind of space it was. VCs would say, well, so what's the market size? And I'd say, I don't know, make up a number, because it's huge, and there isn't any place you can go to find out what the market size is, because it's very fragmented. We've got corporations, associations, trade show companies, commercial event companies, training, conferences. I mean, there's so many. Anything you think of in the world, there's an event like here. They're everywhere. So it was really hard to give them any sort of real number. I mean, you can make it up, but it's huge. It's huge, and it's wholly untapped. We were sitting with one of our largest new customers, Barclays, who's rolling us out globally. They do about 3,000 events a year. And they were in our offices today. And they were telling us how many of the things that they do on spreadsheets. So for us, we think, oh, it's obvious, most of the world must use event management software. They don't, they don't. It's still a pretty fledgling space. So it's a really good opportunity for us.
So, when I tell everyone the story of you from my perspective, I always bring up the idea that you saw a business problem and you went for it. What I didn't realize was that it was iterative, that you didn't intend to necessarily be selling software, you just needed software.
Yes, that in part, we just needed software, but the market needed software.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
we saw the need.
Right. You saw the need for it, and you built what was your solution. And then, how many iterations did you go through, from that first sort of piece of your business?
We're still going through iterations. We've moved actually from, we do monthly releases we do 2-week releases to we do 1-week releases, and now we have no releases. We're just in constant iteration, rolling iteration.
A rolling release.
Yeah.
But the first, from like the first time you had something in the cloud to the first time you made some money off that from someone beside yourself, how was that? Was that a year? Was that, how much iteration you got through in that process? I'm just curious, because I think we all talk about lean, we all talk about trying to do stuff fast that's really useful immediately.
So we were really fast because, one, we didn't have to sell it to anyone, so we didn't really worry too much whether it was perfect or not perfect. So MVP, I never heard of that either, but that's what we had, right? We were using that. We were enhancing it as we went. We were enhancing it for our own customers. We were taking, tickets from internal people who were saying, this doesn't work right. We need to do it this way instead. So it was probably, maybe 2 months from when my CSA started developing the first part of the solution, which is the registration piece, to when we were actually using it for our customers.
And then how long between that and the first time you sold it to someone besides yourselves?
Years.
Years.
But only because we weren't selling software.
Right. You weren't in the software business. So you got to really beat it up and make it great.
We added to it. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think, not a lot of people get to have that sort of path, but it's a great, exciting way. And you didn't even intend to necessarily be in the software business, but...
And it was completely customer developed, right? So from the genesis of the product, just about everything we did from there was because a customer was running an event with a certain kind of need, and we said, okay, we can build a module for that.
Right. Interesting. And talk about 2008 just a little bit, when you were...
Do we have to?
Well, I think it's really
the best time of my life.
because it's really interesting when you think about, you sort of knew you were onto something. You knew your market was going to come back. Events are a really important part of the way the business world works, as I can attest. But no one was listening. So what did you do? How did you set yourself in terms of goals, in terms of meetings, in terms of the discussions you had? How did you keep yourself going?
Yeah, it's interesting. So weirdly, the events business never went away because, as I would say to all of the potential investors, there's no such thing as events stopping. Like, there was all that scary stuff with AIGA or somebody, and everybody was like, oh, no one's going to have events anymore. It's like, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry where that is the company's product. If they don't have events, they have no product. So they're not going to go away. But that was tricky, right? Because what investors really knew of, and it is really changing. It's interesting how many more are aware of this, but what they really knew of is what they read in the news or the kinds of events they were going to that were no longer happening or, were drying up. And so it was very difficult to kind of get them to conceptualize, just really what this industry looks like. So, I got by pitching and tweaking and pitching and tweaking and pitching and tweaking and, getting into a lot of debt.
But and in terms of, did your approach to those investors, how radically did that change from the time you started talking to investors
Significantly.
to the time you ended up? What were there? Is there any one particular thing that you remember was it in your approach and in the way you described the market and valuation? I don't know.
Yeah. Valuation was never even a conversation. For a long time, I couldn't even get far enough along into the conversation to even discuss valuation. But I think that most significantly, honestly, just we went from me being painfully honest, like, a VC saying, well, how big's your market? And saying, well, nobody really knows that. Right. To saying, oh, it's $3 billion globally. It's like, whatever, they can't disprove it, and they seem to, be absolutely determined that I give them a number. So fine, it's estimated in some places it's about $3 billion for technology. Actually, it's probably bigger. Right. But, I just started to put some things in there where, I had given them the honest answers and found they didn't really want the honest answers. They wanted the ones that would make them feel really comfortable when they decided to put it up in front of their board. So, okay, whatever, we'll do it that way. Yeah.
And did you ever go back to the same VC who had been bored by it before or not understood it with the next version of the pitch and then get more interest? Is that part of the story also? They liked it better when you made up a number.
In fact, really everybody that I reshopped the term sheet to, we had seen once before, like a year prior. So yeah, we'd gone back out to the same people.
How many different funding groups do you think you presented to?
Between Boston, New York, and Connecticut, probably 50. It was a lot.
And then multiple meetings.
And it's awful. Some meetings people fall asleep, other meetings they attack you. It's a really nice process. You're not sure which one you like better.
Right. Very interesting. Let's see, what else? I think my comment is that the whole idea of your whole team turning from, not just you, obviously, you're a thoughtful and sort of visionary in your space. You saw that you needed software and you built it, and your team, when you dragged them along into becoming people who cared a lot about software, I think that's really interesting. That's probably one of your secret strengths of the firm, is not just you saying, this is a problem we need to fix, but it's you plus, 20 at the time, who came along and said, oh yeah, we can fix that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, for us, it's all of the people who believed it, understood it, but believed in it enough that, they stayed with us through the downturn. The people we didn't have to lay off around that 2008 timeframe stayed, and they weathered it. And, one of those people is our top salesperson right now. She's just phenomenal, and she just lived with no commissions, grueling it out, calling the next customer, getting people on board. The interesting thing is, though, even during that period, we were growing. We were still getting customers because we were the new interesting product on the block. So everybody we talked to was really interested in what we were selling. Problem was we couldn't talk to enough people, and we had no marketing money. So it was like sort of phone call by phone call.
Right,
yeah.
right. All right, so let's open up to some questions from the audience.